Welcome back to a shorter 55 video. You can see everything is still in here, nothing fell down. He got these capped off and beautifully painted. So we're getting ready to grab some bolts, get her bolted in. And you can see she fits in here pretty good. You know, snuggy-ish right here. You know, that's going to be the spot where if you get any rattle, it'll be right there. But even then, it shouldn't. You know, as long as this mount is doing its job, and it is a pretty solid mount. So at this point, you know, we got our boot in here. We're gonna have to get the headers in and the clutch stuff in, you know, for the Z-bar. You can see we've got plenty of clearance to the steering linkage, so we're pretty happy there. And of course we'll have to play some starter games here at some point, you know, 10 things at a time. But yeah, this is actually coming together. You can see in here we got quite a mess going on there too. So all right, well, nothing's ever easy. And that brand new mount, we had to take that out and modify it to make it work with our bolts, but we've got it. Right now this is all loose, you know, these aren't tight or anything, and even the cross bolts are loose. We're going to bring the car back down, kind of wiggle the motor side to side, make sure we're as centered as we can be. See, we're not too bad on this one, and we're actually not too bad on this one, but it looks like we could probably slide it a little bit. So before we snug all this up, I really want to make sure that everything is sitting where it wants to be. I don't want anything cracking or breaking later. The one downside to going to solid mounts here and pretty solid mounts here is vibration is real, so we got to be careful. Plus we're going to go ahead and pull the sling and start looking at what it's going to take to get the headers in as well. Okay, so we're going to start, I think, with the passenger side header, and that one should go in pretty easy. And if I recall, there's plenty of room for the starter, but it's part of what we got to work out. The driver's side header is the one where we may have to pick things up a little. We will see. That's you never know with those. Sometimes. Well, and as you can see, I've been slightly relaxing this over. I've still got to do a little more on the return line. That's why heat sleeves are important. So we'll get a little more clearance, but we got to be careful. We don't want to overbend anything. And those aren't the actual bolts we're using. The bolts we're using are these guys here. They've already got some torque seal on them. So, all right, that one's gonna suck. Remember, new parts always need modified when you're doing stuff like this, but we finally got the starter fit. Of course, you gotta modify the block to fit your oil pan, but we are able to use all 3 bolts, and that's kind of nice. We're getting ready to drop this. It's ever so tight here. When we did our initial test fit, we didn't put the plate on, so I don't want that to become a buzzing sound, and I think it will, so we're going to drop that one. We did have to pull the oil filter to get this out, or to get this in, and you can see on that steering gear, and I know we've shown it before, it's snug. So, you know, once again, it'll self-clearance a little bit. It'll take care of itself. Okay, so we popped all that up so we could make that tiny little, I mean, we didn't need much, just a little relax right here, just so that that tube and this thing don't ever have a disagreement. And always shove a rag in the hole. You don't want stuff in there. So, time to get that tube back in and the starter back on. Okay, so we've got the actual bolts on this side now and the gasket in. I'm getting ready to put the starter back in before we do the dipstick. And now look, plenty of clearance here. Now I'm not worried about that pushing. It was just tight enough. Also, that back bolt, that wasn't very fun. I don't know how you do it if you had fenders on. I actually reached through here. Yeah, this is pretty snug too. I just slid the motor over, so hopefully I'll get enough room to get the gasket in. That's a it's always a little on the tight side. You can see over here, the areas we clearanced, you know, we were definitely thinking about it. So, all right, okay. Gaskets in. It wasn't fun, but you can see there's a little bit of space here. In fact, let me grab a light. So you can see here a little bit of room everywhere. Nothing's going to hit. It gets close, but it doesn't hit. Same with, if you recall, that clearance job we had to do down there. And then we did have to slide the motor back a little bit because right here you should be able to see it. So, unfortunately, that's just the way this goes. That is car craft. Anytime you change anything, you're always playing the fight for that 1/4 inch game. So, we've got those tightened down. We're real happy with how well the dipstick tube went in. So, yeah, this is really coming together now. We might even go ahead and just pop that dizzy cap back on. Okay, we got everything up there torqued. Just tightened up the trans mount. And now you can see how she sits. It's not too bad. I'm pretty happy so far. This is actually coming together. And I will put these bolts in the next time I drop the oil filter. I just had 50 other things to go with those headers. But yeah, this is really coming along nice. The engine fits in there like it was meant to be there. In another episode of the best laid plans of mice and men, to adjust the Z-bar where we want it, we get really close here. So we're gonna have to grind that back a little bit, which is not our favorite thing. But at the angle we're at, coming off this clutch pivot point up here, it just is a little scrapey, and we don't like that. So, gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, I think we have something. So, near as we can tell, that spring just keeps that from going anywhere. So, there we go. I got a little slack in the system yet, but I can adjust that out up above. We'll lengthen that rod a little bit, and then we will see what the clutch feels like. All right, I think that's going to call it for the day. We're going to write a note about adjusting the clutch because we are way short. I can barely, right there is where I'm finally hitting the throwout bearing. I'd forgotten about this massive spring when I was under there. So, got to do that. That's easy enough. We can dick with that next week. I did get 2 more of the bolts into the bell housing. You can see, well, maybe you can see. Well, no, there we go. There, you should be able to see them since the oil filter was out again. And, yeah, I know. Sure was a lot more work than we expected. Wasn't happy that we had to relax those, but, gotta have the exhaust too. At this point, pretty happy. I don't see anything hitting anywhere. We can actually change the oil filter really easy. Can't always count on that with headers. So, I think that's kind of where we're at for now. All right. Thanks for watching. This has been another ShopRex approved video.